Hey, Scott Hammond, 100% Humboldt with my new best friend, Leonard LaFrance. How's it going?
It's going.
How's EPT?
Busy, very busy.
You guys are always busy, and we're big fans at State Farm. My office is downtown, and you guys are always amazing. So tell me a little bit about Leonard. How did you get here? You said upstate New York?
Sure. Yeah, I was born in New Hampshire. Barely made the 70s by about 10 months. And I think around when I was 5 or 6, we moved from New Hampshire, Nashua, which is it's about 45 minutes north of Boston. So it's kind of almost a suburb of Boston.
It's over the border, right? So,
yeah, it's just over the border. So you can go to New Hampshire and do your shopping, and there's no taxes.
Nice, like Oregon.
Kind of like Oregon, yeah. So we ended up in northern New York, about 2.5, 3 hours north of Albany, and just south of Montreal, Quebec.
Wow.
And I lived there for to about 97. But in the meanwhile, I went to a private boarding school. I was not wealthy, but
Wow.
our church sent me to by choice to a boarding school.
Wow.
In a little place called Union Springs.
Way upstate?
It was actually south from where I was growing up, on just west of Syracuse, on Lake Cayuga, and spent 4 years there. And went to college in Nebraska. I did my first degree as an associate's in fire science. I was going to be a firefighter.
Okay.
As my father and grandfather and other grandfather and my cousins and family. And then 2000, I graduated and I was offered a job with the U.S. Forest Service out of Mad River on Highway 36.
Wow.
And then about 6 months later, I was given a permanent seasonal job with them.
Huh.
And in 2000, so I ended up here about 23 years ago.
From fire to police.
Fire to police, yep.
Wow. Okay. What part of Nebraska?
Lincoln. So
See, what to U of N?
no, I went to Southeast Community College, and then I also went to Union College, which is a private college in Lincoln. So Lincoln's a cool town. It's a college town.
Lincoln is a cool town.
If you're in your 20s, that's the place
Yeah.
to be.
We're from Sioux City, Iowa, so we're upriver a little ways. So yeah, Midwest people are always solid.
I love living in Lincoln. So
Yeah. Hey, all you Midwest people, you're solid.
yeah, they are solid.
Shout out to the Midwest. So that's what brought you here. Did you meet are you a family guy? I assume you.
Yeah. So I, when I came to California, I actually left for a couple of years, went back to Vermont. I was with the U.S. Forest Service. I got a transfer to, I actually ran a fire engine in Vermont for a couple of years.
Wow.
Met my wife. And then once in 2005, I'm like, I'm going back to California. Fire seasons are pretty slow on the East Coast.
Yes, they are. Well, not right now.
Not right now. No, yeah.
It's in Canada, right? Aren't the fires in Canada?
I actually fought fire in Canada in 2005. It's interesting, in Quebec.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, met my wife, came back out here to my old job with the Six Rivers National Forest as a squad leader on what's now the Mad River Hotshots. And then she came out, and about a year or two later, I saw an opening for EPD and applied. And I think there's about 125 applicants, and two of us out of 125 made it through the whole process.
So what drew you to law enforcement from fire?
I think personality. It's much more of a fitting personality for me.
Sure.
Plus, with the Forest Service, it was great. You fought a lot of fires, but you're also gone for 6 months of the year. The pay wasn't phenomenal. It was a lot of fun. You traveled a lot, but when you're gone for 6 months of the year, it just needed some stability.
Seems like you're a personal guy. So we're going to talk about what you do here in a minute. What do you do here in a minute? What's your role at EPD?
Yeah, so I'm a police commander, which means that I oversee half the department. So I oversee investigations and special teams and property. So any kind of major crime, technically I'd be the commander. I have a sergeant who works underneath me or works with me, and then he has his team. We have our community safety engagement team, which is our mental health, homeless outreach, crisis intervention team that I actually helped start back in 2018 when I was a sergeant.
Is that Officer Swanson?
Swanson. Yep.
Swanson.
Yep.
Great guy.
Yep. He was the missed officer with that team for a while. So I oversee that team, property, and a bunch of other positions. And then the other side of the house would be the patrol house, which right now is Commander Hill, and will be Commander Rebang here momentarily.
Wow. Yeah, I saw Ryan in action. He's great. Just talking to people. Just having a conversation.
Yeah, that's really what with that mental health team. That's really what we do. We build rapport. We meet people where they're at. We go upstream. We try to connect with people. This way, when they go into full on crisis, we're able to de-escalate them really quickly, or they comply.
I love it.
But nowadays, most of the time, I either I'm in meetings or which is fine because that's that's how you're helping create policy and creating streamlining services and creating influence to really move programs forward
Sure.
that need to happen. And so I'm always meeting interesting people and trying to make things or try to fix problems and trying to make things better.
Good. That's a good way to look at it, as opposed to it's another Zoom call. I'm on the half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, seems like that goes that way a lot. So, well, cool. So, tell me a little bit more about you and Kim Smalley at the Regional Center and how you interact with Regional Center here. It's actually Regional Center #1 in California. That's their designation.
Yeah, it's kind of it meant to be. It's kind of a unique scenario. We within CSET, obviously, we work with people that are in crisis, people that have disabilities. I teach classes on de-escalation.
And CSET is, again, what?
Community Safety Engagement Team.
Okay.
So when I was with that team, we're heavily involved and work with people in that realm as well.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know is that my personal world would also become engaged with that world as well. And so when my son was diagnosed with autism, so here I am in my professional world, my personal world, they kind of collide together. And
it happens, yeah.
It happens. And so it just kind of worked out well that we, started teaching classes together. I met her during the crisis intervention training we have every year, which is a 40-hour class led by law enforcement and the county behavioral health. Mm-hmm. And we were teaching a class on autism and law enforcement engagement. We did that a couple times and some other classes, I think, also. And eventually, she asked me last year if I can go down to Sacramento or to Ukiah, and they had a 2-day seminar for law enforcement, and so they asked me to be one of the key speakers or person that was there from the law enforcement side to help teach how to best engage people on the spectrum for law enforcement.
The people on the spectrum are everywhere.
It's the spectrum. It's a way like my son. If you met my son, you would think he's a normal kid, right. A normal 9-year-old, and then once you hang out a little bit enough with him. Obviously have some social and communication deficits,
yeah.
But otherwise you would never know.
Yeah. No, I understand so we have Gabriel. He's 23. He's got autism and Down syndrome, and he's my hero. Gabriel's always in happy land, and so I get it. So your role then is to take your knowledge, your experience, your expertise with folks with autism and on the spectrum, and go inform other teams and other individuals about how to deal with that best on the streets. Yeah,
specifically with law enforcement. So obviously there's lots of misunderstandings about autism, or if you see an individual stimming, of course officer could think they're under the influence, which is not true.
Right.
So how do we approach that? How do we slow things down? How do we look for signs and symptoms of autism? How do we appropriately engage somebody? How do we just sitting? Do you sit close? Do you there's no, usually the rule for us is there's no space, there's no touching unless it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
Unless you're a fireman, then if there's a fire, obviously that's the one rule that
you can touch them.
Dr. Smalley has is you can grab them and go.
Yeah.
But our rule for police is unless absolutely necessary, we don't touch at all, because it can create a major issue. And the goal for us as we look at it is when we engage these our community members that have autism, that there are in our community, we're making sure our response is appropriate, but also we're limiting the possibility of a misunderstanding that leads to use of force.
Sure.
And there's videos, I think you can go on YouTube and find videos of
tons of
stuff with law enforcement and misunderstandings, or just bad approaches, or
stuff that didn't need to happen.
Stuff that I think that we can, sometimes you can't change everything, but you can look back and say, hey, for sure this should have been different. And then how do we help people and show them a better way?
So in your experience, there are a lot of people on the streets, say in Humboldt, all over, that are on the spectrum that are just somehow, whether they're homeless or not, but they're on the street and they're maybe late at night or in a weird spot. Is that common to have somebody on the spectrum hanging out?
I don't think that common. Although I just pulled the current data because I'm teaching a class, I think next week, with Jacob Rosen, our clinician for the city. The numbers now in California, 1 in 22 people in California have autism.
Wow.
That's the data. And then, of course, boys are 4 times more likely than girls to have autism.
I'm looking around the room here. I'm going, oh, that's got to be one of us.
Yeah. And and the nationally, it's 1 in 36 people nationally, based on the research. So I don't think, like, our homeless community, which we work with, I'm sure some of the folks we know have autism.
Sure.
But most of the time, the folks that we're going to engage with are likely kids that are at school, or they're having, there's an issue, there's a behavioral issue, or they're eloping.
Okay.
That's often because also underneath my division is also our school resource officers.
So you
And
said a
so,
lot of kids,
yeah.
like non-adults.
I think mostly, I mean, we do obviously engage with adults as well, but it seems currently a lot of the kids or a lot of the people on the spectrum we're dealing with are going to be, adolescents.
Wow. So eloping, problematic at home, whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Good
occasionally adults, we'll have calls from places like Changing Tides or these service providers.
Mhm.
They'll actually ask us to come out to the residence where the person's living, actually meet with them, get to know them a little bit, build rapport. So when they do go into a meltdown or a crisis mode, when we show up, they're like, "Hey, how's it going, LaFrance?"
Hey, what's up?
And I'm like, "Hey," and plus I know, hey, this is what's soothing to them. This is how this is how this is what we can do to actually make it better, not
Right.
worse.
Right. I brought my guitar.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and that wouldn't actually, if I play guitar, that would be an option.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing off the table when someone's in crisis. As long as it's moral, ethical, within policy in the law, we're going to try it, because what are the outcomes we want is everyone to go home
I like it.
and people to get better. So
I like it. I like the positive approach there. So, as you look at Humboldt, I'm going to ask you about your top three. What do you see the top three challenges are in terms of crime enforcement, crime prevention? What do you see personally as your three Goliaths that you're fighting?
I think it kind of all rolls into they're all correlated. So I think the biggest thing is obviously homelessness. That's the biggest complaint we have.
Sure.
And I would agree, if you drive down Broadway or 4th and 5th, you just see it's in your face. You see it.
Yeah.
But again, correlated with that is also mental health or mental illness, and then also substance use. And if we had to add a fourth, as we peel back, I always call it peeling back the onion. The core is going to be childhood trauma, and we look at our ACEs scores for adverse childhood experiences for Humboldt County. Last I knew, we had 30% of our population has a score of 4 or higher, and the 4 or higher is the trigger point for negative impacts to physical health,
Crazy.
mental health, and so
It's
that's
almost a third.
almost a third.
Have a 4 or higher.
Would have a 4 or
Oh my
higher,
gosh.
and then a 1 or higher is, I can't remember the percent, but I haven't seen the most recent data on it, but we're still not sitting good. And I'm not sure, being an outsider coming into Humboldt, even an outsider into California, the West Coast. I wonder, there's obviously some value difference between like the East Coast and West Coast.
Sure.
Where West Coast is definitely a lot more progressive. It's definitely just different, definitely not as conservative as the East Coast, even though they share
maybe
some.
rigid. Is that a good word?
Rigid is maybe a better word, because it's not really political. It's just how
Formal.
it's how we approach the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure how that works with with values within the system. And then Humboldt, of course, we look, if we could define the values here. I think in many regards we're seeing high crime rates for 136,000 people. It's not a lot of people,
Right.
and yet we see, look at the homicides, look at the missing people, and it's it's very interesting to me to, can you define it? I don't know, but
Can you attribute that, and this may not be a popular question, but it's an honest question, to the cannabis industry and its influence over 50 years here?
Being an outsider,
The
looking
industry
in,
and the whole.
yeah, I think from my opinion, looking from the outside, looking in from being, again, not living here, not originally coming from here, but looking inside, I think the values, again, what are the values in that, I guess, microculture of our community? It's money, it's wealth, it's having big trucks, it's making as much as you can, it's not
Sure.
following the rules, it's hiring people and then disposing of them. It's, there's human trafficking involved in that as well.
Sure.
And so I think that's part of it. We, for a long time, weed's just normal. You meet most kids nowadays here in Humboldt, they're smoking weed by 12. It's a normal thing to do.
Right.
Where for me, I've actually never used cannabis ever.
Yeah.
I've never had a desire to.
Good for you.
And if as an adult it's legal, if you want to use it, hallelujah to you. Go for it. But I think just it appears that the value system with that is just, it kind of throws everything out of whack a little bit compared to the rest of the nation.
Sheriff Downey told me 25 years ago, we were camping. He was homeschool dad, and we were kind of thing. But he said, he was sheriff down in Miranda and Southern Humboldt. He goes, it just, the value system is different generationally already. Kids don't, they've learned that money is not that valuable, and they're just, and so it escalates into other drugs and other pleasures and weirdness. And it's like, he goes, it is really weird. It is a whole different deal. And I think, I don't want to go too far off on those guys. Or it's sad. To me, it's a sadness. And I am going to rant for a minute. My rant is that some of those guys kill the environment, and so all you environmental friends, these guys are, torturing the environment. And I remember he said there's 7,000 grows. He could attack about 70 of them if he gets lucky this year. And I go, wow, that's a big job.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is the value. What's the value? The sanctity of life, and that's where if you can view other people that will come to your property and you'll just dispose of them when you're done, like we've seen before with a couple homicides.
Yeah,
it's just a different way of living.
Yeah, and that's the Murder Mountain stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't match the values of what I see as everyone has value, no matter. We look at a lot of our folks on the streets,
Sure.
and of course, people say they have no value, but they do. It may
They're
take
human beings, man.
It may take a while to push back the behavior and see that value and that spark of life, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I view the world, though. And I just think the value system's a little bit off sometimes.
Weird. Yeah, I've heard a term Imago Dei, which is image of God. So, hey, man, I could have been a homeless guy.
Yeah.
Instead, I got 9 kids. So
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder which is better. No, I'm kidding. So, no, I appreciate that. And to be, in all fairness to the growers of grow industry, there's a ton of amazing, beautiful people that are doing it right, that want to do it right and want to make it a good thing for everybody and make it a win-win. And it's sad that there's that abuse. And moving on to, so the top 4 problems then kind of all, in your mind, coalesce.
They do.
And play on one another. So how do you propose to fix all that? Because I realize that law enforcement is supposed to fix all our problems, which is, I'm being facetious completely, but what are you guys doing? And I mean the autism program too, but what are you guys doing to really make a dent in that? Because I think it's up to all of us to dent it and try to make it better.
Yeah, that's the great question, right? And I've been, of course, from 2018 to up to the end of last year, I was obviously running CSET as a supervisor, and I mean, very, very much that was my life for 5 years, and still a big portion of my life now. Working with the department, but the solutions are one: what can we do? What's in our control? So one is the human connections we make every day with the folks on the street. So we know them by name. We know where they stay. We know that we connect with their families if we need to. We try to find out the underlying cause of why they're on the street. Is it substance use? Is it mental health? How can we fix that and actually address that? But it all starts with a human connection. So if you see me walking down the street, they're like, hey LaFrance, that's just the conversation we have, and it's a wave, it's a hello every day. But that also leads into accountability and voluntary compliance and unwanted behavior. So I think the personal connections is the number one most important thing. But you also have to be where people are at. So you can't sit in your office all day and expect people to come to you. Right. As social workers, and we're not social workers, but we do a lot of social work.
Yes, you do.
You have to go where people are. So you have to go out into the field. You have to go down to the service centers. You have to connect with people there and connect with the staff and become very good friends with them as well, because they're good people and they can help people. And then also learn how to work the system here. So how do we get people into a rehab center? So we have connections with Waterfront Recovery, HRC Crossroads. So who do I call when I have an issue? And immediately can streamline that person.
So you know who these guys are.
Yep. And same thing with mental health. If we have an issue with mental health, how can we streamline that person? Or if the system's not working for us, how do we backdoor the system? So for example, we've had folks that had hundreds of calls for service a year on them. A lot of it was mental health with drugs. But of course, whenever there's the co-occurring, which is very common, but if it's so heavy on the drug side, people are often unwilling to help them.
Sure.
And so if they can't, then we would, in theory, we would look at what can we legally do as officers to address the problem. So we start making arrests, which we can lawfully do. It's in our purview.
Sure.
It's right. It's lawful. It's moral, ethical, within policy, within the law. And then we work through the court system. Say, hey, DA's office, we have Bob here. Bob's causing a lot of problems. Bob has an addiction issue with methamphetamine or whatever. He likely has a mental health disorder. Hey, public defender, same thing. Let's work together on this to get a long-term solution.
Wow.
Whether it's either going to rehab or sobering up for jail in 6 months, then going to rehab, or get him conserved, or whatever it is. We have to look at those options because their impact is so negative that we have to do something.
Sure. I remember everybody used to accuse Pelican Bay or Bay Area, law enforcement shipping their guys up here. And is that true? Did they ever one-way ticket, Greyhound to Eureka, bro?
Yeah, I know from Pelican Bay, people can be discharged here on parole,
Mhm.
but we've heard rumors of an influx of people coming from Southern California here.
Hmm.
Has not been confirmed yet.
Hmm.
I know that back in I can't remember how many years ago it was someone sending people to Oakland or Oakland to somewhere else,
Hmm.
but then there's a lawsuit. It's like $400,000 per person.
Wow.
So for example, if we meet someone on the street and they want to go back home to family. Example, we had a gentleman in North Dakota that
Mhm.
wanted to go back to his family. And so we met with him. He had pending charges on him also
Wow.
for like a misdemeanor.
Wow.
So our staff, we have professional staff with CSET. They contacted the family directly in North Dakota. Said, "Hey, we have your brother here. He wants to go back home with you.
Wow.
Are you guys willing to take him? Yes or no?" Well, yeah. They said yes. So like, cool. Then we have to get buy-in from him also to go.
Mhm.
And then we have an issue with the court. So we say, hey, DA's office. He has a pending misdemeanor. It's a minor charge. If we get him to go back home, can we dismiss it? And then we'll talk to the victim of the crime and say,
Wow.
hey, here's the plan. Instead of going to court and going the whole process, he actually wants to go back home to, cross country.
Yeah.
Are you willing to, are you okay if we choose not to prosecute this?
Mhm.
Usually people say absolutely.
Yeah.
And so like that gentleman, he was causing, I think, at least 100 calls for service a year. But we called back to the family. We confirmed their address. We confirmed he had a place to stay. We do all this important work to make sure we're not just dumping him. And then once we confirm, go through steps through A through Z, we actually send him on his way either
Wow.
by bus or usually by bus, but we could fly people out if we had to.
Wow. Bless you guys.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But we're just not dropping people. We're doing all the work to make sure they're actually.
Way more behind it.
I mean, we actually even Google the addresses to make sure there's actually a house there.
Huh.
So, and same with the rehab centers. If we fly people out for rehab centers,
Mhm.
we connect the dots. We talk to the rehab folks, say, hey, Bob is going to be there at, his plane lands at 3:00. And then of course they pick him up. They call us, say, hey, he got here. We have him.
Nice.
So
Nice. So Sempervirens is pretty small, right? Very
Yep.
few beds.
about, I think it's, don't quote me on this. I think it's 15 or 16 beds on SV.
For
and-
three counties.
Yeah, technically. I think,
Wow.
Del Norte has nothing. And then Mendocino has nothing. There's actually not many mental health hospitals in California anymore.
Wow. But they have some beds, and they take some of the harder cases.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on, it depends. Because, often right now, all mental health holds go through the ER,
Mhm.
which has been obviously challenging. And
yeah.
we work with St. Joe's closely, their ER staff, their admin very closely on, they're practically our extended family.
Yeah.
But they go to the ER first and then they get either sent out of the area or they get sent locally.
Yeah.
But there's not enough beds across the nation. There's not enough beds.
Yeah. Really issue close to my heart. I have a 21-year-old who was suicidal at 15.
Yeah.
And he got a 5150 and day at St. Joe's, and then 8 days at the John Muir Hospital.
Yeah.
And wherever that is. And yeah, hard story, but got to meet Ryan and different people,
Yeah.
and so interface with the team a little bit.
Yeah, and eventually, state-wise, we have to look at, how are we going to fund, better programs, more mental health hospitals.
Mhm.
I think they're going to change the laws a little bit for gravely disabled for 5150 to include SUD or substance use disorder as well to a degree. But again, you get people on the street, you get them stabilized, and where do they go after that?
Where do they
And,
go?
and so that's that's what we've been working on for the city is some transitional housing. So we'll have the project on Hillficker coming up. We're looking at another project.
Oh.
That is, it's staffed. It's not just like, hey, just go live here. High five. We did an awesome job. It's
Right.
like, here's a place to live. We're going to support you. We're going to give you case management. We're going to give you SUD support,
Wow.
mental health support, employment support. This way you bring people back into the fold, not just say, hey, we solved the problem. High five. We move on.
Complex problem.
But we have to bring them back into the fold and teach them how to live again.
Right.
And how to live, how to live even in housing. If you've been homeless for, 25 years, you may not have used a toilet or cooked. And
yeah.
so,
Pay rent? What's that?
yeah, exactly. And so plus if you have ongoing mental health issues or, substance use issues, you also have to address those as well. So it's,
Sure.
some people think, it's easy as giving someone a house and then, we're done, but it's much, much, much more complex than that.
Really tough. Really tough. So how do you guys interface with, say, CHP or the Sheriff's Department or even other law enforcement? Do you, as EPD, I mean, what does that look like day to day or paperwork, or when when you're on a case like the sheriffs that shot the two guys? You guys were probably back up on that, but how does that all work?
It really it depends.
Mhm.
So like in that instance, it happened in the city. So actually I heard the call come out on the radio, dispatch advisor, shots fired. So I was actually at 4th and V, just code 3 that way. And then
So everybody just converges.
converges. Yeah. And so, luckily there's the chief was there, the assistant chief was there. I was there, Commander Hill was there. And so in essence, we set up a command or unified command with the
Is
sheriff's
that
office.
county or is that sheriff's?
Sure,
Okay.
that'd be our jurisdiction
Oh,
here.
it was, okay.
It was in our in the city. Yeah,
But they were on site first?
yeah. Well, they were involved in the incident inside the city.
Gotcha.
But the sheriff's office backs us on calls. If we don't have people to go to a certain in progress call, we can call the sheriff's office.
Mhm.
If we have collisions, CHP has arrived to help out before. For us, with our criminal investigations unit or CIU,
Mhm.
we've worked with Fortuna. Fortuna's been awesome to work with.
Hmm.
They assisted us with several investigations here in Eureka that rolled over into Fortuna as well.
Hmm.
For the officer involved shooting, they were providing everybody from, of course, the sheriff's office, CHP. Pelican Bay, Ferndale, Fortuna, all help with coverage at the hospital
Wow.
when we had the 2 suspects.
Okay.
So it's really, if someone needs help, they call us, and then we look at it, and we usually assist them if we can. They assist us as well. So it's a small community. We all have to play together because it's a small swimming pool.
Mhm.
So
Does that go for feds too? Do they? I mean, I imagine the feds don't show up every day in Humboldt, but
yeah. So there's a couple agents down in Fortuna. They do meet with. Not every week, but they meet with us with our criminal investigations unit.
Mhm.
Probably every couple of weeks they meet with them, and there's some overlapping cases they work on, so we do see them.
Gotcha. So how do we help? How does Josephine Citizen jump in and help the team?
I think looking at a bigger picture from what's causing the issues we have in Eureka. Obviously, we have a high property crime rate. I don't know. I haven't looked at the data recently, but we are fairly high. But we have to look at kids. We have to look at how do we go way upstream with the
Kids.
youth nowadays? How do we reduce that trauma to the kids? How do we help develop programs that kids can have a positive experience,
Mhm.
even if they have at home they have a rough life.
Mhm.
But they show with ACEs, if you have one supportive adult in your life, the chance of you having positive outcomes is greatly heightened.
Hmm.
And so, we want that involvement from our adults in our community, working with kids,
Mhm.
being a good example of what an adult looks like.
Big brothers, big sisters.
Yeah, for an example, I'm with Humboldt IPA, which is not a beer.
Right.
It's so I'm actually part of the Boys to Men mentoring group. I think it's called Men Empowerment now, but it's a group we have mentors come into different schools across Humboldt County. I've been with them since the beginning, and we just talk to kids that some kids have some have some troubles, things going on, but we just have conversations. I go in there for different schools, usually once a month.
Oh.
I've been to juvenile hall, very different places, but have very honest conversations with kids.
Mhm.
And I pretty much say, hey, it's who I am. And I usually wear a suit or not my uniform. And I'm like, what do you think I do? And so I challenge them. And they, start throwing things at me, it's like, okay, I'm a cop. Okay, what do I do as a cop? And then of course they give me, the standard response, you shoot people, blah, blah, blah.
20 questions.
20 questions, but then of course, once I
like
say, what I do actually is I work with, now I go to meetings, but,
Mhm.
in the past, I work with the homeless people and people in crisis. And then of course that opens a whole different dialogue, and they can just shotgun questions at me. I don't care. I'll pretty much answer any question I can for them. But you're building that rapport with the kids. You're having
cool.
honest conversations, and you're humanizing also officers on the same time.
So what I'm hearing you say is connection with people, relationship connection, maybe deep connection, for that kid you're going to mentor, or there's a homeless guy in our alley who he's really respectful. I really like the guy, and I was making a point to say hi and keep an eye on my place for me, and he's a person, turns out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, connection's key in anything. It's funny because I'm actually a pretty strong introvert. I guess I'm a moderate introvert.
Mhm.
So for the most part, when I go home, leave me alone, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
But then I tap into my extroversion at work.
Right.
But I still know that human connection is essential for all that we do. But still, even with human connection, we have we build those rapport, but we also hold people accountable for we have to have that balance.
That's right.
And so part of mentoring, is have that connection, but there's rules in life and there's accountability.
It's good.
And to grow up to be a man in society, you have to have accountability.
Yeah.
You have to if you raise a family, you take care of your family. If
right.
you're an adult, you get employed. You work. You try to improve your life. You try to improve the lives of others. You don't harm anybody else. And those simple things that we've been blessed to learn, but many kids that we meet nowadays, that's just it's not common to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Accountability to what?
Yeah.
What does that mean? No, I like that. I like that because that is kind of the counterbalance to connection and community is accountability, because we're going to play in the sandbox. We're going to do it right. We're going to, make mistakes and come back and correct those and be accountable and move forward and grow. And maybe that's what community is about. So what motivates you, Leonard, in terms of what you do day to day? How do you keep going? What's your secret? What's your mojo? What's your secret sauce?
That's a good question. I'm always been a very, very driven, intense person, especially in adulthood. When I have a mission, like when I was, anything I'm doing, at work, or especially in work, it's that self pride I have to do the job right. And then, what is history going to say about me when I'm done, when I'm long gone?
Legacy.
I think it's important. It's, not that I'm saying I'm going to save the world, because I'm not, but if you save one kid or one adult,
did your job.
then you did your job. But, I think it's that self pride that drives me to go forward, to be the best I can. I think as you look at life also, we always move up and then we plateau, and we move up, we plateau. And I've seen the plateaus in my life, and I've been there. I wouldn't say I'm quasi plateauing right now after a really couple of years of really bolstering myself up. But it's always that self growth and self development that I want to be. When I leave, what are people going to say? That did I just stay where I was, or did I keep developing myself as I went along?
What's all the tombstone? What did it say?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it'd say, but hopefully it's good, not bad. So
right. So top 3 opportunities that you would say. I've asked how can we help as a citizenry, but what do you see as for Humboldt from your perspective? How you've said personal connection, just get to know people and love on them, hold them accountable, have a relationship, but also what can we do, or what do you see the 3 opportunities in I don't know if they're economic or in law enforcement, or what? I'll leave the answer to you. What do you see that we have coming up that looks good?
Yeah, when I look at Eureka, there's a lot of opportunity in Eureka. Eureka has a ton of potential, and I've said that we have our issues. The data shows that. However, we have a ton of potential, and so I think for us to reach potential, we have to. A big thing is economy. We have to boost our economy.
Yep.
We need to bring in businesses, bring in tax bases. I mean, imagine if we lost Costco.
Yeah,
right.
That'd be weird.
That'd be really weird. Where would you shop at? And that's a huge tax base.
What if we got Home Depot?
Yeah.
Whole other story.
Whole nother story, right? But we have to bolster our economy.
Yeah.
And then I think that's a big piece of that. And I think that correlates also the next thing is we look at our policing force. Right now we'll be down, I think in a couple weeks, we'll be down 10 officers. So we have 48 sworn total.
Whoa.
And we're down to 38. And our staffing is based on a population of 30,000, but the daytime we're 60,000.
Wow.
And so our officers here, and again, I'm a guy who goes to meetings. Like I do nothing flashy. I do police work occasionally, but our patrol guys on the street are really the guys and gals that are busting their rear every day. They're pushing forward. They run call to call to call nonstop, sometimes for 12.5-hour shifts.
It's long.
Many times they don't get breaks. Many times they don't eat lunch, but they're constantly going. And so I think for us, if we can develop our youth, into the next generation of police officers, that hey, policing is actually it's a very good profession. It's a noble profession. There obviously are standards. We have to always improve and progress our profession. But this is what we need from our community coming up, and have those local folks that are actually going to be part of the department to actually make the community better. And that's, I think, the opportunity we have is if we can keep our kids local. We have an academy here. Send them to the academy. We have Cal Poly. We have CR. Get an education while you're going to the academy, or get an education. If you want to go straight to work after high school, awesome. And go to the academy at 21, awesome. And then, when you're as an officer, you want to go and finish your bachelor's or your master's or whatever you want to do, that's great too.
Wow.
But I think we have a huge opportunity to keep our local kids and actually develop them into law enforcement. That's a major need we have right now. Major need.
All departments are short, generally speaking.
I think everyone except for Fortuna. Fortuna does a very good job about.
Must be a good department to work for.
I think it's a very supportive community for law enforcement. It's definitely much more conservative community.
Sure.
So I think the support for law enforcement is probably a little more significant than other areas. We definitely have support in Eureka.
Sure.
But I think it's a smaller community, so they have less trouble getting officers. They're definitely not as busy as we are. But it's just the challenges, keeping officers here. So, example, we boost the economy. It's likely you'll push your tax base, and then you'll be able to pay your officers. Obviously, you'll actually be able to raise their wages, which we're still definitely compared to most of the state are underpaid,
Okay.
especially for the work they do. And you can probably even hire more staff and then also fill the vacancies and specialty
Mhm.
roles like our POP team,
Mhm.
which actually goes out and proactively addresses drug houses and
Nice.
those kind of things. Because right now we don't have the team right now because we don't have the staffing for it.
Let's talk about your dispatch team for a second.
Sure.
I imagine you want to shout out to them because they're usually awesome, right? People that I've met have been really, I mean, even worked with have been really, really amazing.
Yeah, the
They're
art
kind
of
of part of the football team.
oh they definitely are, yeah, because they're actually located in our building. But yeah, they multitasking extraordinaire. They
Mhm.
can multitask nonstop, and they also work 12-hour shifts,
Wow.
sitting down for 12 hours, which is a long time. Phones constantly going off. Not only is the regular non-emergency line plus the 911 line, plus the radios going on, plus they're running people, plus they're inputting data. It's craziness for
Wow.
12 hours. They get nights, graveyards will probably get an occasional. It might slow down, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a matter of seconds, it could, all chaos can ensue, and they're doing everything they can. There's only 2 of them also in that dispatch center, and so they do a lot of amazing things.
Are they the core of the 911 calls?
In Eureka, yeah. So any
Okay.
kind of 911 would come. Would usually, if you're in Eureka, will go directly to our center.
Yeah. The gals guys too that I've talked to have been amazing. So what can we do? We can support the economy. We can raise up some amazing kids and be supportive of kids. And what was the other thing you said? Mentorship, and then go one-to-one with people and engage people and be. I guess somebody told me, hey, just be a friend.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think once people, it breaks down barriers. You look at somebody. Obviously, we're naturally judging people regardless of whether we recognize it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But just having those connections, it's just amazing how I'll walk down the street and people are amazed. Like the homeless will talk to me because they're like, well, why would the homeless want to practically talk to the cops?
Right.
Well, it's because I know them and we have a relationship, we have a friendship.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm an officer, so there's an expectation that they have to follow the rules. We've seen even regular citizens, whatever regular and normal is. I don't know what that is, but
Right. Typical.
people yelling at us, for whatever, or just being
Mhm.
nasty to an officer, and we'll have homeless people come up and say, "Hey, time out! You need to back
Yeah.
off because it's
great.
which is very bizarre, right? Because you think it'd be
Perfect.
the other way around, but it's not. So it's an interesting dynamic.
I love it. No, it's true. So I have a story about that. It was a bunch of us were on the Arcata Plaza singing some praise songs. This is 30 years ago. And a homeless guy started to come up and yell at all these youth that were singing. And the other homeless guy came up to our defense and said, "Get out of here. This is not this isn't your plaza. Would you please, stand down and go sit?" The guy did. So it should be. And I imagine a homeless population could be a really big resource for a bad apple that shows up in some fashion. And hey, yeah, he's right there. He's sitting over right there.
Yeah, we've solved a lot of crimes, in major crimes. Just the fact that we have a major incident in Old Town,
Mm-hmm.
and usually just the people we know or the connections we have, people say, "Hey, you may want to talk to so and so," or "Hey, here's the name," and just because the folks that we're there to protect our homeless community also, and they know that we care about them. We know that we see value in them,
Sure.
even though sometimes their behavior is unacceptable, and we address it. But that relationship allows them to give us information because they want to stay safe as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very interesting dynamic, which some people don't believe it until they actually come out with a team and say, "Wow, this is really interesting how this works."
No, so everybody's got a story and on a journey. That's what we say at our house. So I'm going to part with 2 questions for you. Should have started with these. So my father-in-law Tom was a marathon runner and a really nice guy and from LA, and he had 2 questions for people. Who are you? And what do you want? So we'll start with the who are you, Leonard? Besides the data of who you are, who are you?
That's a good question. When I actually did a kind of a value system assessment of myself years ago, and one of the things that came up is I'm a person of integrity. I am who I am, and pretty much what you see is what you get.
Nice.
However, having integrity also forces you to continue developing yourself. And so that's what I always start with. But besides being, working as a police commander or a police officer, I'm also, I'm a parent of two young children, 9 and 7-year-olds. I'm a husband. which, marriages and law enforcement can be definitely difficult.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have a spouse that handles. She's my personal assistant. That's what she calls herself.
Nice. She calls you LaFrance?
Yeah, she does. Yeah. It's just,
I can imagine Jody going, "Hey, Hammond."
Yep.
Yes, dear. What?
Yep. Happened. Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm a, that's my family aspect, but I'm a huge board game player.
Wow.
I'm big into sports simulation board games based on all data. I love data. I love
sports simulation and board games. What does that look like? Not Monopoly.
No, it looks like you have a game system. Like right now, I'm playing a game called History Maker Baseball by Play PLAAY.com or Play Games. And it's you have a booklet. You have cards. I play a fictional league, and you have different players. I actually created the league myself and been playing it for 3 seasons now. And you roll dice. You look at the book.
So it's not online. It's not on a computer.
Nope. It's all you roll dice and you keep scorebooks. And
that's cool.
And I love data. So I'm a data guy. So I love knowing my batting average of my player is 332 or. And then it's just kind of my own little realm. You
said you like documentaries, so you like Ken Burns baseball?
I do. Yep. Although he got it wrong.
Did he?
He got it wrong about Ty Cobb apparently. So
that Ty Cobb was not a monster.
He was not a monster. No, apparently he was not, according to the most recent.
Interesting, because it always comes out that he's a real.
Yeah, apparently he was not. So
Eric.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm a kind of a closet geek, and but
that's cool.
For the most part, I'm a homebody, and when I'm not at work tapping to my extroversion side, I'm usually at home tapping to my introversion side.
Called adapted work behavior.
It is out of necessity.
Yeah,
yeah. That's I think that's quasi who I am, I guess.
Okay.
What you see is what you get.
I love it, man. That's solid. So what is it you want? You talked a little bit about legacy. What do you want for what do you want from life? Remember it was an old rock and roll, the Tubes or somebody.
That's also another deep question. What I want in life. Well, I'd like to, obviously, when I'm done with this career, I can be done at 50, so about 6 years. In theory, I could be done. I probably won't be, but what I want after that is to keep moving my family forward. Hopefully, have my kids, if they want to, whatever they want to do in life next, either go to college or get employed, support that, obviously. But if they do want to go to school, find a way to pay for that as well. I was blessed to end up with my master's degree a couple years ago.
Nice. Where?
I did it online through Union State University,
what's your degree in?
Organizational leadership.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I want to support the education. I think it's important. It's not everything. Not everyone needs a master's degree.
Sure.
But for me, that's what I want to do, and it made me feel better and helps me to work, and it's awesome. For me, though.
You said integrity is always growing.
It is always growing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after after retirement, I'd like to, either teach at a university or consult on the side, which I do some now. For example, with like the regional center.
Yeah.
So, consult about, crisis intervention, working with people with disabilities, mental health, anything in that realm, policing the homeless. How do we police the homeless? So any kind of consulting work on that, and also teaching in that realm as well. So
I love it. That's awesome. Any questions for me?
I don't think so. No.
Wait, you could be the interviewer.
I know.
No, I really appreciate having you. And I share your heart for special needs populations, because they're everywhere. And my oldest son, Jacob, who's a great guy and programmer, he goes, "Hey, Dad, 9 kids plus me, I'm 10. He goes, "I think we're all special needs, don't you?" And I go, "Yeah, Jacob, I'm pretty sure we are."
That's okay.
And that's okay. Anyway, hey, appreciate you having you, and come back sometime. And we want to support what you guys are doing all the time at EPD, but also with regard to Regional Center and that kind of program. So appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, have a great day.